Getting started, this is part 2 of Empowering the Kenyarican. This one is titled Listening Without Fixing. Why is that important? You know, as Kenyaricans, and I'll talk about Kenyarican, right? Kenyarican is a term that we defined, I think, a couple of years ago, where we said there's you're Kenyan, you're American, so we just called it Kenyarican, right? And so with Wezesha, the Wezesha series, what we're trying to do is to empower the Kenyarican. In other words, give the Kenyarican access to information, resources, opportunities, so that they're able to, you know, be the best selves that they can. And for them to do that, we need to have this discussion, not only with the Kenyaricans, but with the parents as well, right? As Kenyan-born parents of American kids, you know, we as parents have a really deep desire to transfer all these things that we learned, right? We come in, we get kids in America, and we immediately go into that mode of, how can I reach back into the things that I learned so that I can impart them on my kids? We'll call them values. So we try and raise our American-born kids as Kenyans to instill the values we learned back home. But even more important, we resist the need to learn the American way. And so sometimes I feel like we impose our Kenyanism on our kids. And I don't know if that's the right thing. I don't know if it's the wrong thing. But the goal of this session is to just open up our minds to what things we could be doing better as parents of Kenyaricans, what things or what questions, like we talked at the top of the meeting, what are the right questions to ask instead of going to the default of what we learned? Because what we learned by default is why are you doing that? Why are you crying? Why did you do that, right? We have that as a default. We need to correct that. And so that's why I'm very happy to have you here. So that's it. You know, welcome, Florence. You're not just an expert, you're the teenage whisperer. And I think the preteen is the new teen. So my son at 11, I can't wait for him to be 13 to get this lesson from you. I need to get it now for him as a preteen. So before I let you sort of introduce yourself and put your slides, I'm going to ask you, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask it.
Sure.
What's one piece of advice or wisdom that your kids just don't seem to get in the American context? Like you say it, you know that advice you're giving them, but then they're like, they just don't get what you're saying. Like I told you, you think money grows from trees. My kids are like, huh? What does that even mean? So what's one piece of advice or wisdom from back home that you give people or you give kids and they just don't get?
Thank you. I don't know if it's an advice or it's a funny thing. It's actually a joke that whenever we walk outside with my kids, and they will tell you that I always used to tell them, you know, when they see the moon, I tell them, are you a thief? Because back home, we were told only thieves see the moon in the day. So here they go to talk to their friends, and the friends say that, you know, they say they see the moon. Oh, the moon is half moon. And they say, are you a thief? And they're like, the friends are like, what are you talking about? So that is one of the things that, you know, I don't know if it's an advice or it's, I think that is one of the things, like as parents, we talk to our kids without having the concept, or without explaining to them what that is. And that kind of like brings a barrier. Our language, our things like that. Yeah, that is one thing that came to mind.
That, and can you finish the food? Do you know how many kids are starving, right?
I know.
And my son retorts, so if I don't eat, they'll stop starving. They'll stop. Right?
So why don't you take the food to Africa?
Take the food to Africa. Okay. All right. So Florence, tell us a little bit about yourself and, you know, just introduce us to you.
Okay, so my name is Florence Gichuhi, and what I do is I help parents and teenagers move from frustrations, overwhelm, and power struggle into creating a relationship that is empowering and that is mutually respectful. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I'm a sister, and I'm a soon to retire homeschool parent of 21 years. So that is a little bit about me. Why I do what I do is I want to give others what I wish I was given, and to give teenagers an opportunity to grow as teenagers, as not and not as forced young adults. To give them an opportunity to be who they need to be.
Awesome. How old are your kids?
My oldest is 25, 18, and 21 this year. Yeah, this year, 21.
So not only do you've gone through the experience that most of us are either about to go into or have gone through or are not even thinking about it, right?
Yeah, I always like to say that my kids are the one who taught me how to relate to teenagers and how to be a better parent, because like many parents here, I'm bringing them up here in a place that I did not grow up. So me seeing how they relate to the world and how I related to the world at that time taught me how to come down to their level and learn from them.
So I keep using this word KenyaRican, right? And it's in part because I don't know how else to call these American born or raised kids of Kenyan parents.
Mm-hmm.
So is that wrong in your experience? How do our kids identify? Is Kenyan even a thing that they identify as, or Zambian if it's the case of Monga, or is a country an identity that they identify with?
So when it comes to teenagers, and this is very important when we call, it's okay for us to say that they are KenyaRicans. Note the word here. It's okay to say they are KenyaRicans because they have the Kenyan identity and the American. They were born here. But kids, they do not have a choice to choose. They don't have a choice to choose where they fall. They want to be whole and they want to be seen as whole. So let me bring my notes up here. So most American-born teenagers or kids, they have identity in layers, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they're home, they are Kenyans. When they go to school, they're Americans. So they have an internal battle going on in themselves where they do not fully identify as one or the other. When they come home and they do whatever a normal American child would do, they are too American for their parents. When they go to their schools, they are too Kenyan to the American friends. Or even take it further, when we take them to Kenya, they are too Americans. They are too American. When we bring them here, because they don't have that Kenyan roots, quote unquote, as the Kenyans growing there. You know what I mean? So the powerful question here to ask is, instead of assigning identity to them, ask them, how do you describe yourself? That is one I would say.
Why is it important for us to give them voice, right? You think as a parent, you are responsible for their voice or for their outlook in life because you're their protector, right? So you're telling me I should go to someone who I feel that I should be protecting and say, describe who you are. Like that's very counterintuitive for a parent because the parent should know or should be able to force the identity on them, shouldn't they?
I don't think that is accurate because you should never force anybody to be what they do not identify as. Right? So what is Kenyanism? You mentioned that word when we started this conversation. What does that mean to you and what does that mean to your parent? So when you say you want your kids to understand Kenyanism or the Kenyan culture, is that eating gima with sukuma wiki? Is that, what is that? Let's start there. What is that identity? And then allow the child to have their own identity, and identity includes their values, right? If your values, for example, I remember when we were growing up, cleanliness was one of the biggest things, right? Especially if you are girls.
Yeah.
So you would wake up on Saturday morning and you'll do a thorough cleaning. You'll be sweeping dirt, right, with a kifagio. But when teenagers hear it's Saturday morning, because your value is cleanliness, are you going to wake them up at 6 o'clock to start sweeping the pavements or the driveway, right? So here you have to, it's important to sit down with your children and help them understand, okay, what are your Kenyan values that you really do want to instill in them, right? Teenagers have the capacity to understand what they want, right? Our job is to guide them into the goal that they will try to reach. Don't underestimate your power of influence over them. At the same time, don't use it to control them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, you start by what are the values that you want to instill in them? And it just so happens that you inherited them from Kenya. No, they're not Kenyan values. It just so happens that you inherited them as a function of where you grew up and the environment around you.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. That's
and also remember, the home, your home is the first community for your child. So how they interact in the world, the small community at home, is how they're going to interpret the world outside.
So
is it safe for them to tell you their values and what they value most and how they identify themselves as a KenyaRican or American at home? Because that will tell them it is safe outside over there.
I'm really interested in that word safe, because I'll come back to that. But why don't you do this? Why don't you present what you have? Then I'm going to write it here, because that safe is a very interesting word, which I think as parents maybe misinterpret what safety means, or we take it to the extreme. And in so doing, we don't allow our kids to blossom because of safety. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is not Zoom. So you're going to have to, let me.
I'll guide you. At the bottom, you'll find a little arrow with a computer at the bottom. You see that?
Yes.
Yeah, click on it. Then you can share that tab. It will say share a tab that you have. There you go. And then you're all set.
Okay. That's not what I wanted. Okay.
Oh, we can see it. So if you put in present mode, I think you should be okay.
Okay, let me start over.
Okay. And Eve, don't say anything about Google Meet. Keep your these people who are harassing me about Zoom, me, I'm Google Meet through and through.
Google Meet, we have to do something about it. Okay. All righty. Okay, here we go. I think that's better, right?
Yep, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about. We just talked about this, that the most powerful question you can ask is, instead of assigning an identity, you can ask how they describe themselves. You can call them KenyaRican from the angle that they are Americans and they're Kenyans, but allow them to tell you how they identify. So one of the questions you had said is that, why do kids pull away? Kids pull away. When we talk about pulling away, we are just describing the behavior that we are seeing. The silence, the pulling away, the moodiness, right? As a parent, it's important to go deeper and try to understand the reality. What's going on beneath the iceberg, right? Teenagers, as most parents know, they're still growing. Their brain is still developing. Here is a chance for them to learn how to define themselves. They're trying to test their independence and also protection of their own nervous system. Like you had said, when a parent asked, why did you do this? Why did you do this? That always appears as an attack. When you ask somebody a why question, it's an attack and they feel like they need to protect themselves. And as far as they are concerned, how they have attached to you is what will determine if they need to protect themselves from you or they need to let loose, right? Also, when we keep criticizing our children, judging them, giving them, raising our voices at them, spanking them, and all these other things, that is the level of comfort, the safety they feel around you. And that is why when we see them pulling away, they could be just avoiding constant correction, comparison. Why can't you be so and so, right? The truth here is that distance is often a defense mechanism and it's not rebellion. We are so used from our culture with labeling. You are lazy, you are rude, in other words, right? And even labeling them as a smart kid. You're very smart. What that translates sometimes is that I'm only good when I'm smart. If I'm not good, right? So when they're pulling away, those are all the things that we need to consider as a parent. They are protecting themselves and not rejecting you. So what we call misbehavior, like talking back, rolling eyes, we have to consider things like feelings. What are they feeling? What are they thinking about what happened, about you, about themselves, and also their nervous system? Are they in a calm position, able to explain them to you that when they were in a bus, somebody was bullying them? Have you created a safety place for themselves, for them to come and talk to you? Also, consider what's the context of this outburst, right? What are their unmet needs? Sometimes it's a known fact that when our needs are not met, we have that negative feeling. But when our needs are met, we have a positive feeling. What are the beliefs? Here we are calling them KenyaRicans. What if they don't identify themselves as KenyaRicans, right? Belief. Maybe they believe they need to be Muslims, but you keep telling them they are Christians. Do they know they are Christians? Right? Also the brain development and the quality of attachment. So sometimes the relationship we have with words as parents, like respect, always clouds the vision, our vision from seeing what our kids actually are. For example, if most parents of my age and or around who grew up in Kenya, we always used to hear the word respect. You have to respect me, you have to respect me. And the translation to that was you have to be silent, right? You cannot talk. You're here to be seen and not to be heard, right? So here's the thing. Do you have any question?
I have so many questions. I want to share. I won't ask, I'll share. How about I do
Sure.
that? No, not share like
Oh.
a couple of situations that you just talked about. One is understanding that intent and impact are different. So you as a parent here intending to ask a why question to find out, how you can help.
Mm-hmm.
But the impact it's having on the child is a fight or flight. They start putting defenses up. So I think one of the things I'm taking away immediately is intent does not equal impact. You have to frame your questions in a way that the impact is what you're seeking,
Mm-hmm.
even though your intent is different, right? Because I think we all love our kids. We all want to be protective of our kids.
Of course, yeah.
Then so I'll be, kind of vulnerable in a certain way and give you two interesting experiences that happened. One happened just literally right before we got on this call. My daughter, she's sitting on one side of the table. My mother-in-law is on this other side, and me, I'm standing, serving food. Then my daughter says, "Hey, Dad, can you please get me the water bottle?" Which is a hand away from me. It's like right next to me, right? My mother-in-law turns and looks at her. And you can imagine her asking, in cute, like you are asking your dad to get the water bottle for you, And in that moment, you freeze because on one side, you recall all the memories of you cannot ask an adult to do something for you. But on the other side, you're like, I'm right here. I mean, it's not hurting me, but you can't suppress that feeling of, okay, I'm the father. You shouldn't be asking me that. As much as you try and push it away, it comes. And for any man here, that is one of the things as male leaders of the family, you have a respect that everyone should honor. And it's very confusing. So that's one. The second one was when my son, he came and he was tearing up, and I did exactly what I told him. I said, "Why are you crying?" And I asked him 3 times, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Why are you crying?" Again, my intent was to unpack what is it that's going on that I can help you with. But by that time, I could see him cower, like. So I just wanted to share those for what it's worth, those interesting experiences that fit into exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability, and really, that is real life. And I appreciate you for saying that. So when it comes to like the mother-in-law thing, it's okay because that is what she knows, right? And it's okay for you to feel how you felt. But the most important relationship here, and I think maybe he dropped, is the relationship between you and your son. Respect has to be maintained with the in-laws and with your elders because that's what they knew. But the relationship you're building here with your son is the most important one. What do you want your son to learn from today, this incident? And another thing is when he came in and your son came in crying, one thing to identify here is why do his tears make you uncomfortable? That could be what is happening, that his tears is causing some nervous system dysregulation in you because it reminds you how you felt at that age and nobody was there to soothe you. So the parents' job here is to learn how to soothe their children and how to make them a safe harbor for their children to come and talk to them openly. Remember, a parent has to regulate themselves first. They have to teach their children how to co-regulate with them. Children you model to your children what you want them to learn. If you want them to learn to be self-regulated human beings, you have to embody that and sit with it, the discomfort, and learn to overcome it and learn with you, regulate yourself to teach your children how to regulate. Is there another question?
That for me, that's it for now. You got it. All right.
Okay.
Go on.
So this is cultural inheritance, and it's not a failure, right? Being raised how we were raised to survive. We were not raised to connect. And if you look at the world today, our teenagers and our young adults, let's get there too, our young adults, they're in a world and they're going in a world where they are learning, they're wired for connection. Starting with the phone in their hand, that is connection. Sometimes when they're on the phone, they're just looking for that connection, which when we were their age, We used to get at the field. We used to get when we went to go shamba with our neighbors, or we used to hang out with friends. I remember my brothers, they used to go from morning. We'll see them at night when the darkness has come. These kids don't have that priority. So sometimes we have the same family, but we are wired differently. What the parent sees as disrespect, the child sees as self-expression. Defiance is seen as boundary testing. Silence is shut down, and control is seeking protection. So when we say you're a teenager, you're too sensitive. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? In his or her heart, what she says, I need connection. This is not rebellion, it's a nervous system mismatch. So let us embody and appreciate our cultural inheritance. It's not a failure, but a step forward to the next generation, right? So when I say that we were raised to survive, our parents were raising us to prevent disaster, right? But the hypervigilance in a safety environment feels like control. That is why we are always fighting with our teenagers, fighting in quotes, not like physically fighting, right? So one of the questions let me move this completely out of here, sorry. One of the questions that you have asked is that many parents find themselves in constant struggle, and what is the outcome of fear?
Yeah.
When fear drives, connection breaks, right? When your son came to you crying, and thank you for giving me that prompt, right?
Yeah.
Rather. When he came to you crying, your nervous system could have remembered how it felt to be that young and why you crying. And also you're a dad, you're a fixer, you want to fix the problem right now. But if you're parenting from fear, it drives control. You want to control whatever it is that's causing my son's tears because I love him so much. I want to control it and remove it from them. When in other circumstances, when we are controlling our children, they feel suffocated, right? Remember, our goal as parents is to see our children. So the same visibility that we are trying to seek, we are stopping it by suffocating their feelings. And what that causes, remember, when a child feels that they are not seen, they are not heard, and they don't have a safe place, the next best thing for them to do is to do things in secrecy. And this is dangerous, especially for young girls. That is how they end up in abusive relationships. Something happens to them at school or in the field or when they went for a sleepover or something like that, and they do not feel safe enough to come and tell you, right? So some of these quotes that I'm putting on Facebook this week about children's safety, it comes from things that I've seen personally, where parents are so detached from their children, maybe because they're working so hard, and I'm not faulting anybody. We all came here for greener pastures. It's okay. But let's not sacrifice our children on the hill of Wezesha and growth, right? Our kids are struggling. I have seen them and I've talked to them, and they are really struggling. They are the most lonely people. They are the most misunderstood, and they're doing things in secrecy. We used to think that girls are the only ones who cut themselves. No, boys do that, and they do it in places that you cannot even imagine to go look. So this fear and control, it breaks connection. Fear says, obey so nothing bad happens, but it's happening in the secrecy, right? Connection says, let me teach you how to navigate wisely. If you create an environment at home, remember I said, home is the first environment or the first community for a child to learn how to navigate the big world. So if you say, let me teach you how to navigate this wisely, you're doing it right. But when fear dominates, you lose the very visibility you're trying to protect. Okay.
So Florence, let me ask you, because I hear what you're saying and it makes a lot of sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think about, being first generation immigrant,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm gonna put let's say all the different like hats.
Sure.
First generation immigrant, you talked about all the pressure we have to make life better for our kids than the ones we had. So those are, common for a lot of immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's there's racism, there's blackness, there's the fear of, how do I say? Let me actually be more straightforward. My daughter, 15, Black girl. I know of all the experiences Black girls and Black women go through,
Mm-hmm.
and all the shaming that they go through, all the not being seen that they go through. I mean, there's a lot of studies around that here in the US. And I have a Black son. Same thing in a very
Sure.
predominantly white school.
Mm-hmm.
And my instinct is to protect them. And part
Yeah.
of don't do this, be
Oh, you're
careful
breaking
about
up.
this. Oh, don't tell me I'm breaking up. John is going to start enjoying me. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you now.
How does that control, how do I reframe that control into something that's more positive? Because for me, control means putting guardrails for them so that they don't end up in a predicament. How do I
Sure.
reframe that?
You said two different things. How do I control? How do I put guardrails? Those are two totally different things. Controlling is like treating them like a puppet. You cannot talk to this person. You cannot go to this person. And also, you and your wife, how are you talking about race at home? Let's start there, right? How do you identify yourself as a Black man, right? Have this healthy conversation. Go even a step further. For your son, adopt a Black policeman that's gonna teach them the street ways, to be street smart. For your daughter, the same. And as a family, do the same thing. Adopt other. And also, this one thing I actually see a lot in our Kenyan community. Sometimes the fear of mixing with other people, other races, other African Americans, because trust me, when your child is out there in the bus, they're not seeing a KenyaRican, they're seeing an African American, which is what they are. So having this conversation, reading books with them, immersing them in the history of this country without fear, and also not imposing your own beliefs on them because we have a higher understanding than them. Ask them curious questions. As for example, when they were having this issue of the Minnesota, that was a perfect moment for parents at home to engage with their kids, not to tell them what's going on, to ask them how they're experiencing this new world that we are in right now. To get good answers from your kids, always ask good questions. And good leading questions are curious questions. Lead with curiosity.
I like that because it's more often than not, we lead with compliance than curiosity, right? Again, I don't want to make the excuse that it's part of who we are, but I think we were trained for a long time that lack of compliance is punitive. And so
Yes.
we inherited that. And I've been learning, especially all those tips that you send every night from the Wezesha session we did last year or and a half ago with Vanessa, has really, really helped me like abstract myself from who I am and try and open my mind up to ask those questions. And that's why it was so important for us to have this here, because I think there's, where maybe 6 or 7, maybe like 10 people here. I imagine I'm not the only one going through this.
Yeah.
So I think more than that, we as Kenyans, we can probably relate to straddling that fence, right? Of Kenyan values, American reality, the past, the present, the triggers, the trauma. Like, I'm not saying we have a lot of things on our mind, but we do have a lot of things on our mind.
We do.
How do we turn those into simple, curiosity-based relationships with our kids?
It starts with awareness. Being aware that, number one, we're not going to fake it. We did not go in this country. So we learn with them. They actually know better than we do because they're out there in school than we are, more than we are, right? So learn from them, learn to come to sessions like this, and just educate yourself. That is what I would suggest. Educate yourself on how to navigate these waters of American and Kenyan culture. And also identify, when I say my kid is Kenyanism, I'm going to keep going back to that. What does that mean? What is Kenyanism? Trust me, when most teenagers come to me, the number one thing that they say when I ask them, so what does it look like at home? We always eat gima with sukuma wiki, gima na nyeni. That is the extent of, at least the ones I've interacted with, that is the extent of the Kenyanism that they know. To me, in our household, some of the things that we hold as value is when it comes to things like naming children. How did we name children? How did we get where we are? Why are you named this way? And when it comes to if somebody holds the tradition of Wezesha and everything, we don't, is that important to you? Those are some of the things that, yes, you can carry on them, but some of them do not hold water with our children in this generation.
So identify what those values are, map them to why you feel so strongly about them, why calling it Kenyanism like is a proxy for those values, and talk through those values with your kids.
Yeah.
I remember reading this, listening to this podcast where it was talking about the power of stories. And I took that up and I tried it with my son. I think I started telling him stories about when we used to go to shags and get the goats, and then, framing it as a story versus a lesson. And I could see, his eyes light up. I think he probably even shared it with his friends. I think kids learn more from our storytelling than from our instructions. What do you think?
There are two ways to that, right? It's very good to tell them stories because stories are number one way of bonding with children. With anybody, we tell stories, right? Our shows, our grandmothers and grandparents used to tell us stories. But why are you telling that story? Are you telling it reminiscing what you missed? Like telling them, in the same context of when I was your age, I used to go to the river and carry 5 gallons of mtungi on my head. Now that's not a good story because you have an ulterior motive behind that, right? But telling them stories, like one time your grandmother and I used to, we used to sit down and do this, that, and the other. She taught me how to knit a kiondo, a basket. Do you want me to show you how to do that? This is how we did it. We used to make, sisal, those are the good stories. But don't, like shame your children or tell them what they're missing, or do you know how good you have it? I sacrifice for you. Those are not the stories we want to tell. Does that make sense?
Why are you calling us out, boys?
Girl,
that's what
let
we
me
do.
tell
Shame
you,
our
I
kids.
am you.
Okay.
I've been there. I'm not teaching, I don't teach what I have not experienced or what I'm learning. I learn these things with you. I teach what I learn and I learn what I'm teaching.
Wow. Okay, so if there's parents here watching right now,
Sure.
and there's others who are gonna watch, and some of them may say something like, Florence, if I'd known this, my relationship with my child would have been perfect. But I did not know this, and now my child is 15, 16, 17, 18. I'm tired of all the constant arguments. They're trying to trigger me. What's the first step? What is the first thing? What is the thing that I should do now to get back on track?
Okay. So I'm gonna give you an example of something here, right? Number one, what is your goal? If you're bringing up your child, how do I minimize this?
Are you sharing? I don't see you sharing.
Oh, I'm not?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. Okay.
There you go. Okay.
You know what? I'm just going to stop sharing and talk because but I'm a visual person, so I always assume that everybody is visual, learn visually, but there's something else I want to show you. So remember, what was your question? I got distracted. I'm sorry.
No, it was, some parents may say, I wish I had started this. I wish I knew this a long time ago. But now I'm already in the situation where constant struggles with my child. What is the first step in trying to remedy that? What is the action that they take today?
Okay. The number one question is to identify your goals, right? Your goal, your child is only here from 13 to 18, that's 6 years, right? Always go for long-term influence as a result of whatever interaction you're having with your children, right? So that being said, let me share something that we did as an experiment. Me and my homeschool career people. So, oh my word, guy. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, the love and hate.
Oh, you can see it?
Yeah.
Is it magnified?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, so this is an experiment. I don't know how many people know about this experiment. It's the rice experiment. The rice experiment, to me, I translated to be how you can connect with your children, regardless of the age, with the power of words. So this is how we did the experiment, right? 2 cups of rice, and I think it was started by a Japanese person, 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of water, 1 cup on each side, right? And every morning, so in our group, we chose the person who had the most number of children and most number of people in the household to do this experiment for us. We are 5. They had 7 children, so that is more. So every morning, each person would go and say loving words to the love jar and hateful words to the hate jar. And this experiment went on for 6 years, from 2011 to 2017 when my daughter graduated. You can see the result. Now translate that to how you relate to your children. What words are you keep giving your children? Are they empowering words or are they hateful words? And hateful words don't have to be like wewe ng'ombe or you are this, that, and the other. It could be words that are really making them feel insecure, not safe, unloved, unheard, unseen, criticized, judged, and all those kind of things, right? So from that, I created a program where parents can start learning how to relate to their children. And if you don't remember anything else, remember Bridge. That is my signature program, BRIGE. And how it works is that always remember that the number one thing you need to do with your children is to always focus on what they need. Yes, you are exhausted. Yes, you are tired. Yes, you are triggered or anything like that. So Bridge is the number one, let me bring it up, thing that you B is always build emotional safety. Build an emotional safety place for them. R is recognize their world. We grew up in Kenya, they're here in the US. Seeing their world through their eyes, whereby us, what we see as respect to them is expressing themselves, that will be the game changer. And it doesn't matter how old your child is. Repair happens even when your child is 25, 26, 27. But it starts with you apologizing and learning, right? Once you have recognized their world, the next thing is to initiate respectful dialogue. Parent with your children. Yes, you're older. Yes, you're the parent, but trust me, there's still some things that your child can teach you. Respect goes both ways. It's not one-sided, it has to be both ways. Then the other D is trust. Develop trust through consistency. You cannot say you're going to sleep over today and tomorrow you're not going to sleep over. You have to have consistency. That will stop the confusion in your child's mind, because kids thrive in structure. That's why they do well or they don't do well in school, right? And then guide with clarity. Going back to your scenario with your son when he came crying, right? What was the clarity what is the thing that you could have guided them with clarity? Number one, yes, you cannot control your tears because it's his body, not your body. Why do his tears make you uncomfortable, right? Understand that, or they're making me uncomfortable because when I was growing up, I did not have a father at home, and I wish I had someone to protect me. Or, oh my God, this is my child. I really need to protect them and wipe away these tears. And then empower with growth, right? So let's stop there for a minute, and then we're gonna talk more about empowering growth, because I think that is the most important thing that we can do for our children. Are you there?
Yeah. Build emotional safety, recognize their world. You have to be able to apologize and learn. You have to initiate respectful dialogue. You have to develop trust through consistency. This thing of kids thrive in structure, I want to come back to that because
Sure.
I think sometimes we confuse them.
Mhm.
At least I'm guilty of confusing, right? I say, oh yeah, we'll do this. And then you get caught up with something. Then like, oh, we'll do it next week. Oh, and my son has called me out on that, by the way. He said, I think he didn't, I don't know if he said something like, why do you break your promises or something? Then I was like, Allah, you don't know I'm busy, something like that. So today I'm being very, very honest with you.
I'll tell you where that comes from.
Okay.
Because sometimes, really, seriously, we are so used as parents, and this is how we grew up, on counseling on ourselves, that we have normalized it, that we have extended to even counseling it on our children. But we're not going to cancel our job, right? That's something to think about. And as we are bringing up these kids here, number one, we have to realize two things, right? When we escalate, that's the point about consistency. So your son said, why do you break your own promises? Yeah, why did you always cancel on me? Mom, I've been called. Mom, you have to stay consistent here, right? I told you I'm going to such and such place, and then you're saying, where am I? I'm asking you where you're going. We have to be consistent, because when we do not stay consistent, that's when we have these escalations, which are response to protection, right? Staying consistency in everything is important because it leads to discipline. When we talked about when your mother-in-law was around and your daughter asked you to bring water, that's the feeling you got, right? Because it should be vice versa, like you said. She should be the one serving. You should actually be sitting down and everybody else around, the man in the house, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But that is traditions that what if you want to carry that tradition in your household, then you should have started, or you should start doing that, right? If that's a Kenyanism you want to follow. Again, your child's home is the first community. Start there.
Your child's home is the first community.
Because always imagine, this is what I mean by future focus your children's future, right? The influence that you're creating in them. What's going to happen if they go to the work? Now they work for Amazon or whatever, they're working somewhere, and they have an authoritative or an authoritarian boss. They're going to be repeating the same patterns that you repeated as a child, because that is the environment that you created in your own household. We are not parenting for today, we are parenting for the future.
So when you said something earlier, you said you have to, what is your end goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's the goal? So if we are vision boarding what our goal is as parents, what are some of the things that we should put on that vision board?
Influence. I should be able to influence my child as I'm parenting with them, because I'm coming with clarity and with empowerment, right? And this is how empowerment looks like, right? In empowerment, the number one thing to do is, and when they were like at the age of, I want to say 2 to 7, is I do, you watch, right? I do, you watch. The next thing is, as I'm doing your watching, we do it together. That's collaboration. The next one is you do, I watch, and that is support. The last thing is you do independently. That is trust. You see, it's a stair. It's like that's how it looks like. Can you see that?
Yeah.
The scaffolding. Yeah. This should be the you, and you're empowering both of you and your children.
This is really, really, really good, because it's a step function where you go from modeling to trust. And I think as parents, we keep going. Sometimes we go 2 steps back. We're triggered by something that happens, and I think it's natural to do that. But and I am sensing what you're saying, that don't be too hard on yourself if it happens every once in a while. You are an emotional being; it's going to happen. But keep your eye on the prize, which is to raise our kids to a point where we can trust them to do things independently.
Yes. So here is what we do, right? I tell my daughter, Sarah, come clean up the kitchen. she comes and cleans it the way she knows how, right? But because I had done it faster, she first went to answer a call. I'll just do it myself, right?
Story of our house.
I'll just do it myself. See, that is what happens. So what are you doing in that scenario? You're kind of like, what's the best word to say here? You're kind of like, unamvunja mkono, you're kind of like, she's going to become, you're handicapping her instead of empowering her.
Okay, Florence. Okay. So someone without a name, you won't name them.
Yeah, they
is
never
actually supposed to be the dish taker and put things away, you know? But they always appear to be challenging that. Right? So you see the challenge, the challenge. What is that about?
Describe challenge. I'm not getting you.
Like,
quote unquote, I'm not getting you. Explain.
Okay, I'm gonna use fictional characters here.
Sure.
Peter always tells Jane's job is to wash dishes. Every time Peter reminds Jane, see, your job is to wash dishes. That's all you have to do in this house, is to wash dishes. Jane, instead of washing dishes, like, as clear the dishes and wash them, is always giving attitude and takes a long time to do these dishes, which is very annoying for Peter and everyone else in the household. I know you can read between the lines there. And it's just, and then Peter rolls into the action of, you know what? If you don't, I'll just do it myself. Because, like, where's that attitude coming from? This is the only thing you have to do, and you're not doing it. Is Peter wrong? What's the attitude Jane is giving? Like, why can't Jane just do it?
What is the attitude? Describe the attitude. You don't have to answer that. So sit down with it and see, is this really an attitude? Plus, remember that scaffolding stairs, right? What has been modeled? What has been said? What has been told, right? What are the consequences? Remember, the best way you can parent with a teenager is to parent with. Make decisions together, okay? Your only job here is to do dishes. What are the best effective consequences when you don't do the dishes?
So you're saying you're having that conversation. Peter and Jane are having that conversation.
They should be having that conversation.
That conversation.
Yes.
I'm just going to keep quiet because let's see.
No, Peter can continue talking because Peter is very wise, and these are real life stories, right? Sometimes we have to understand that when we come in this community, there has to be rules in these communities. There have to be limits and there have to be boundaries, and at the same time, there has to be consequences. There are some things that parents will tell children, these are the rules in this. If you live in this household, this is what happens regardless. You like it or not, those stays. But there are some rules that are negotiable. Discuss those with your children. Other than that, you're going to keep having these fights. You're triggered, they're triggered, and discipline becomes, I'm gonna do it myself, or just slap the child. I see Eva has her hand raised.
Hola, mamacita. I'm in darkness because I'm in my bed. Hello, Dr. Wezesha. I was just gonna add on, and I'm enjoying listening to this, by the way. Kudos to
Sure.
you, madam. I was just gonna add on when it comes to chores, the way it works in my house. My husband is very like ADHD, OCD, whatever you wanna call it, people say. And so we used to have that tension. Like he says the thing needs to be done and he expects it to be done in 5 minutes. And I'm more laissez-faire in how I approach things because my parents were like that, especially my mom. She was a rule breaker. So I mean, not my mom, my dad really. And so when it came to our kids, I think I had to draw the line of it will be done when it will be done. If it's the dishes, for instance, I don't have to stress over it has to be done in the next 5 minutes. I just give them room and I don't have to micromanage when they do it. I mean, I just know they'll do it at some point. I don't know if it works or if it's the right way, but with my kids, especially with Zuri, because she was a busybody and there was no way I could expect her to do every chore in the house at a specific time. If she needs the rest, sometimes she'll come home from band, like on a Friday night, they had band, marching band, and it was probably like 2 hours away. By the time she comes home at 1 a.m., I don't expect her to be up at 8 a.m. to do her chores. You know what I'm saying? So long as I know she'll do her laundry and clean her bathroom sometime in Saturday before Sunday, I'm cool with it. And then you have the other extreme of parents who are like, no, it has to be done before you rest, before you sit down for lunch, before you leave I mean, so it just like you're saying, what is the value? What the values in your house? How do you communicate? How do you delegate? How do you come to a consensus? It's very individualized and you have to find what works for you and because it's like Zuri's schedule was very different from other kids or from even her own cousins. So if a child is not that busy or whatever, don't pile on. I mean, does that make sense?
It does. And thank you so much, Eve, for bringing that up because, again, it's the values you establish in your household and also the rules that you have established, values and rules, right? If you say by 9 o'clock, all dishes have to be done, that is okay. If you say, your job is this and it has to be done at that a certain time, that is because what you're teaching your children is also having that discipline of doing things when they're supposed to be done. If they go to work, of course, they're not going to tell their manager, I'll do this project when I want to do. They learn from home. Okay, my dad said dishes have to be done by 9 o'clock p.m. That's the rule of this house. We have all agreed. Then that's how it has to be. So going back, I just remembered something, Dr. Kamanu, that you talked about why parents struggle. Sometimes when a parent feels that they are living with a stranger, it's not because that they are living with a stranger. The teenager is not broken, you're not broken. It becomes the fixed trap. When we feel distance, you just want to control things. And most of the time, we are living in memory. We are living in the memory of what used to be and fantasizing on what it could be. Now I have my own kids, this is what I wanted, and this is what it has to be. But parenting is not a script. It is a posture. The goal is not to fix the child. It is to shift the approach from control to connection, which is safety-based. So once a parent understands that a parenting is a posture, that will reduce a lot of friction. That was answering your question, why parents struggle.
It's really, thanks, Eve, also for your perspective, because you're right. Sometimes the two parents don't necessarily come from the same, like they have different perspective. Like in my house, I don't know if there's other guys here, but I hate doors being left open. I hate lights being left on. So every night I'm the one going all around the house, closing all the doors, turning all the lights off, screaming my head off, saying, why do you keep leaving lights on? Right. And then everyone else in the house is like, why is it such a big deal? Right. And then you go back and you reflect, okay, is it a big deal? And then the fixer in this says, I have to get those lights you Zimmer with your phone or something. Right. Well, my point being that, I think we have to be okay with different parents have different OCD levels, right?
Yeah.
But my question for you, I really liked what you said, based on values and rules. But you said something that was very interesting. You said consequences. So I want to dig into that. What guidance can you give on can we agree if you don't do this by this time, the consequence will be this? What are those consequences that we can use?
Okay. So consequences have to match the event. By event, I mean the misbehavior, quote unquote, right? For instance, if they don't do the dishes, you can't come and tell them they can't watch TV. The two don't match, or they can't go for a sleepover. The two don't match. Number one, what have you discussed with them, right? If they say, for instance, now what's a good one? If they don't turn in their homework, what is the consequences? You're not going to go rescue them to get that grade A, right? The consequences will be let the chips fall where they may, right? So that matches. You're not going to tell you to do your homework. I have trained you that you have a calendar. You follow this calendar, you do your homework. So that matches. That is number one. And that is one of the hardest things to learn as a parent, by the way. What punishment, quote unquote, matches the offense.
Okay.
That is a very good thing to learn. And the kids will tell you, and most of the time, at least from my own experience, they will come up with something that actually matches. That is why it's very important to ask them what would be the best consequence here. And then you have to gauge, is this consequence for them, to just get away with it? Or is this consequence just to actually teach them something? Because remember, we are teaching them responsibility. How can they be responsible by letting them get the punishment? Or, I keep saying punishment because that's what we're used to, but it's not really punishment. Yeah.
So are you saying we need to collaborate and negotiate on what the consequence should be versus imposing it on them?
Mm-hmm. Let me see if I have those notes, because I had everything prepared for you.
Love it. Let's see. While you're doing that, I'll go through the chat. I see, Monga had missed this in the beginning. Value of a clean room. My kids say they have 3 accents, one for America, one for Zambia, and one for Kenya. That is obvious. That's awesome. Okay, Isaac said some good words, then he had to run. Monga, our daughter, she can tell me when I'm taking over, and I'm not allowed to contest that. Wow.
Wow. There you go.
I'm so curious. Monga, we'll get to you. I'm so curious what prompted that and how that's going. John says they are not meeting unreasonable expectations. I'm curious what that was in response to. It sounds like it was in response to something. Tonya is saying, I'm like you with those left open. Also, why is the tap on full? Dude, yeah, you feel me. Man, the tap is open full and it's just rinsing like a glass. I mean, okay, yeah. Sorry, I got emotional there, but that is the nature of our house. So let me, in the light of like consequences, I know you're going to show us something, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is your child well. When they're not performing at their best. What they're capable of, informed by your knowledge of them, plus what their teachers tell you, etc.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Every parent's fear is this child is not doing the best, and I have to come up with a incentive, a carrot to to incentivize them to stay on track, or consequence to punish them. So I'm going to tee that up as I listen to that consequences, the consequences thing. Okay.
Keeps you minimizing it. Whatever. So this is where, what I was talking about when I said guide with clarity. When you're a jailer or you're controlling, you are just increasing the level of anxiety. Remember, the goal here is it's long term, the influence you want to have with your children. You have to choose which are essential boundaries in your household. Like Eve was saying, for them, Zuri did not have the time she needed to relax, right? So if her hair or her clothing or whatever, her room looked dirty, but she needed to rest was a priority for them, right? So for you as a parent, these are some of the essential and non-negotiable boundaries. When it comes to safety or legal things, the core values, what are your core values at home? This stays. They are firm and they do not move. And then you have those preference boundaries. Those are negotiable, right? So when it comes to doing dishes, does it fall under essential boundaries or does it fall under preference boundaries? That is between you and your household to decide.
This is dope. This is really, really good, because I think most people are very aware of the essential boundaries, right? Safety, legal. I think people are quite clear and firm on those.
Yeah.
I think most people move the preference boundaries slightly to the left and start making them essential with the excuse of, I'm preparing you for being an adult. So you must do this, or you have to do it this way. Because frankly, for us, we didn't have this. I don't think that for us growing up, I could be wrong, I don't think we had any preference boundaries. It was all my way or the highway. Everything was pretty far for most of us growing up, I think it seems like. This is really, really, really good. Gosh, I'm looking at the time. This time went, so it's 9:20. Okay.
Oh, wow.
You know, right? Let me see, because I want, how about I do this? Let me open it up for questions. I always say whenever we're on Wezesha that this is your opportunity to get advice from someone for free right now. So you ask your questions now, because you may never get a free opportunity to ask your question again. But yeah, let's have anyone have any questions. Then I'll have a couple of final questions and we can wrap up. I'll give you the mic to wrap up. But any questions? Let's see. Who do I see? I see Monga's here.
I think somebody asked how do you ask?
How do you ask the why
How do you
question?
ask the why question? Okay, can they unmute themselves and give us context? Millie? Okay, I'm going to answer that. So when a teenager does something, the best question you can ask them is, help me understand what was going on for you. What's going on with you? Or help me understand what your thought process was when you are doing these things. Help me understand, make me understand. It removes the accusatory language from your tone, and also mind your tone. That is how you should, I invite you to ask a why question. What were you thinking? What was the process? Not what were you thinking, but help me understand the process, your thought process when you are going through this.
So what should I have asked my son? You told me to recognize whether it was me or him, what at that point, what is a practice I need to think What's a best practice that you think? Millie said you answered that very well. Sorry, I could unmute. I could not unmute.
That's
Okay, Millie, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. What do you think? What are some of the things that I should have said, stated, asked?
Maybe nothing. Just hold him. Just hug him. Just hold him. I got you. The touch, human touch, speaks more than the word and the tone. Just hug him and hold him until he's ready to speak. Right? Maybe rock him. That's all he needed. A hug. Not you to speak. Because once you start speaking, you're already transferring that nervousness to him. Just hold him and hug him. Maybe you didn't need to speak anything. And then maybe ask him, are you ready to tell me now what happened? Is this a good time? He may be open. He's saying no. If he says no, respect that. Because sometimes you'll be like, no, you have to tell me everything. You're my child. No. Just hold him and hug him. And, whenever you're ready, I'm here for you. That is safety.
Thank you. That is.
You're welcome.
Would hugging work for the wife too if she's stripping?
Most likely, that's her love language.
Yeah. I like that. That's true. There's this book called The Masculine in the Relationship, and it attempts to teach men how to respond versus react is one of the things they say, right? And part of what they say is exactly what you said. Sometimes for men in general, the response is fixed by talking. I like you said it so well, that the talking sometimes is not what's needed, or the fixing is not what's needed. Sometimes it's the I got you. Whatever that means, or whatever that love language translates to, is I got you. Thank you. That was really powerful. Very empowering and great session. Lots of unlearning and learning. Say more. What are those unlearning and learning, if you want to share, especially the unlearning part? What have you unlearned, or will you unlearn moving forward?
Who, me?
No, I'm looking at the chat, and I'm, George Gates says very empowering session, lots of unlearning and learning. So I'm curious.
I see my friend Annie is here. She's one person that I worked with her and her young adult child. And if she's willing to share, she can share what she needed to unlearn once the other person goes.
Go ahead, John.
Well, for me, what I would say is, I think it's just making that shift from the traditional Kenyan mindset. I guess the way we were raised, like, hey, I have to speak, the kids have to toe the line, putting a lot of emphasis just on academics and not really giving them that attention, or really listening to them, or, to me, the biggest thing is that collaboration and planning to honor them, engage them, and making it like a true team, like a team mindset. And also, like you said, just learning to be like a servant. I'm not here just to be served in my family, but to also, lead by example. So if I have two young boys, 7 and 9. So even if, we have regular meetings where we meet like at least once a week. But I tell them, everyone is a leader in this home. So I'm just not like the boss. So everyone else should, have that platform to be able to, express themselves. What's going on? Are you having any issues? What's working? What's not? So, I mean, this is just really, really very empowering. So just lots of things that I will need to apply, going forward. So it's been very, very good. Thank you.
I truly appreciate you saying that, especially the part where we put a lot of emphasis on academics, right? We had a very good session with Eve last time, right? Excellent. But what I have seen personally is that we focus so much on academics, we do not give them the tools to thrive in that Ivy League school that they are going into, to thrive in the workplaces, to thrive in the wherever they go. We do not give them that emotional, tool right? One thing I invite each and every person in this forum to remember is that right now, our young adults, our older teens, and a generation that a dream has been stolen from. They're the most lonely. They're the most sad. They're the most sad people, in my opinion, from my interaction with them. This is why. Most of us may be at the age of 30. We actually could afford to buy a house and live the American dream. They cannot. We have them in our homes because they cannot afford it. Number one, because we focus so much on academia, we did not give them that tool. Now they cannot go survive. They cannot go survive themselves by themselves out there, maybe economically, emotionally, or whatever. Number two, we have seen how the economy has turned upside down, especially on our race, right? So my invitation to each and every person here, take it upon yourself. You don't have to come to me as your parent coach or your person or your team coach. Go find somebody. Equip your child that they will be able to come out shining, just the way they are having those shiny degrees and diploma. They will be very stable and equipped to withstand the storms of this crazy world. Oh, I got emotional. Yeah.
That was really good to hear because the whole person, not just
Yes.
academic person, right? And Eve talked about it last week. It was one of the myths we needed to bust, which is go for A and everything will sort itself out. No, it won't. Joanne.
Hey, Joanne, my dear.
Such a good conversation. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
So I wanted to chime in as a parent of an adult who has raised a KenyaRican. I think we focus on the wrong things, especially in the house. I think we focus on not cleanliness. We focus on making them do things because we were made to do things versus teaching them how to be self-sufficient without forcing them to live in a state or in a household where they're constantly being forced to do things they don't enjoy doing. As adults, if I don't like washing dishes, if I don't like doing housework, because I have power and money, I will outsource that. I will hire somebody to come and do that work in the house. Or use paper and plastic cups or whatever, so that I don't have to wash dishes.
Yeah.
Or hire a laundry service to do the laundry and things like that. Now, does that mean we don't teach our children the things they need to know? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying teach them how to do the things they need to know how to do so that they can be self-sufficient when they leave the home or whenever they are living with other people. But let's also normalize encouraging our children while we teach them how to become self-sufficient and all those things and earn good money. Let's normalize outsourcing those tasks also, if we can afford it, because most of us grew up in homes where those things were outsourced to other people. We had house help in the home, and so our lives were not surrounded, or we didn't live doing those tasks that we are making our children do as punishment in our homes.
Yes.
So I would just like to encourage us to stop focusing on the wrong things and to stop using normal household things as punishment, because then you create a child who does not enjoy doing the normal things that they need to know and learn how to do. Will they cry when you force them? Yes. But also, I guess, for me, I didn't have the language when I was teaching Angela, like how to do her laundry and things like that. But I taught her how to do her laundry, whites by themselves, colors by themselves, whatever. And I can tell you, the first thing she did when she went to the military and they were told to do their laundry is write a letter to me saying, thank you for teaching me how to do my laundry, because the kids who came here who did not know how to do their laundry mixed all their clothes, and now they're having to buy new military uniform because they've ruined their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So your kids are listening. Just use the right language and the right techniques. And like Florence said, hire somebody if you're struggling. Suffering is optional.
Exactly. Thank you, Joanne. And to piggyback on that one is that, yes, if you force them, they will just comply. They will just comply out of fear, just like as we did. But that's not relationship building. That's short term. Compliance is short term. Connection is long term. And I wrote something earlier that I needed to say here. So the Kenyarican American thing, right? It's all about perception. Perception drives interpretation. Interpretation drives your tone. How you interpret your kids' behavior, it will drive your tone. And then the tone drives your response. And then the response will drive the outcome. Let's start from the back. What outcome do you want? You have to do the perception.
Start with outcomes, start with the long term. John, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
Really good, because yeah, it's interesting when you think about like the mind and the way the mind thinks. A lot of the stuff that was outsourced to house help is the stuff that we ended up having to do ourselves here, or those who went to boarding school had to do it. And so it's almost like a rite of passage that because I went through this when I came straight home, my kids have to go through this, right? And in all this, what I'm hearing you say, Florence, is what is the intention? What is the goal behind that? Are you teaching them to wash dishes, or teaching them the value of being responsible for the things that they eat, whatever it is, right? So you have to find a way that is collaborative for both. And the big takeaway I've taken is it a farm value? That slide you shared, is it farm? Is it on this side on the left, or is it a preferential thing? And you have to be able to be consistent and clear about it. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that is speaking so much to me is the collaborative versus compliance piece. We can actually sit down and talk about these things and say, hey, what do you think would work best for you? And what's a good consequence if that doesn't work? Mm-hmm. We shouldn't feel like we're on our own, like carrying this big thing where we are responsible for all these decisions, when we can actually collaborate with our kids on that. Yes. With that, because that also transfers to how they are going to engage with others, both in school or at work. So, wow,